All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely chilling true story of paranormal terror. And as we go through this incredibly wild account, sourced directly from the people who actually lived it, you're going to see exactly why the most dangerous entities lurking in the shadows are sometimes, well, human. So buckle up. The story of a young woman named Ishita is an absolute roller coaster, taking us from supernatural horror straight into deep, unthinkable familial betrayal.
So, it all kicks off with a foolish, seemingly innocent little invitation, Aja, which basically translates to, come here. It was yelled out as a total joke by some stranger at a creepy tree in Rishikesh. But when Ishita accidentally repeated that word, Aja, she had absolutely no clue she was swinging wide open a door that would completely derail her life.
As we follow Ishita's journey, tracing her steps from a haunted riverside hostel all the way to a shocking betrayal that literally nobody saw coming, we have to ask ourselves a pretty terrifying question. What actually happens when the monsters haunting you aren't just spirits, but your own blood relatives? Seriously, how do you protect yourself when the call is coming from inside the family tree?
To really grasp the stakes here, you've got to understand the unbelievable pressure Ishita was already under. I mean, by age 21, she was the sole provider for her parents. Her father was too ill to work, and she was also managing an estranged adopted brother who was constantly making demands. It was a massive burden. So, to handle it all, she scored a remote gig as a content writer. Fast forward to 2023, and she's living in a shared 10-bed hostel in Rishikesh, juggling this crazy heavy workload for a modest salary of just 20,000 rupees a month.
Now, her vulnerability, physically, financially, and, emotionally, made what happened next so much worse. Right outside her hostel, overlooking the beautifully serene Ganges River, stood this incredibly eerie peepal tree. The locals, the hostel guests, everyone claimed this specific tree was a major hotspot for jumping shadows, weird noises, and just overall supernatural activity. In fact, Ishita was so freaked out by it that she absolutely refused to even look at it out her window. But one evening, a simple networking chat went totally off the rails. Ishita was hanging out outside trying to connect with some Instagram influencers staying at the hostel. And since they were outdoors, she couldn't help but nervously glance over that creepy peepal tree. Well, an influencer's friend noticed her fear and decided to poke fun at her, yelling right at the tree, "Oi, is someone there? Aja." Caught up in the sheer tension of the moment, Ishita angrily snapped back, accidentally repeating the word, Aja. She scolded the guy immediately, knowing full well that in a deeply spiritual place like Rishikesh, you just don't casually invite entities in. But the damage was already done.
The nightmare didn't take long to start. It began subtly, but escalated fast. Just days later, a severe storm knocks out the power, plunging the whole hostel into pitch darkness. Ishita is sitting there, working by the faint glow of her laptop, when suddenly she hears them. Heavy, creaking footsteps coming right toward her on the wooden floor. And before she can even process it, boom, a sudden, aggressive tap right on her shoulder. The contact was so real and so shocking, she literally screamed at the top of her lungs, terrifying everyone else in the room.
Later, that exact same night, things went from spooky to fully visceral. She woke up, paralyzed in bed. Her chest felt like it was being physically crushed under some massive weight. She's desperately trying to recite the Hanuman Chalisa, a Hindu devotional hymn, in her head, but the words just wouldn't come out. And as she's lying there completely helpless, she watches this thick, dark cloud literally materialize into a massive, bearded entity right beside her bed.
The psychological torment this poor girl went through was just relentless. Imagine this. On another night, she wakes up feeling something slithering up her bare leg. Thinking a snake got into the room, she reaches down in the pitch dark and actually feels a soft, fleshy, snake-like body. Completely panicked, she grabs what she thinks are its eyes and squeezes as hard as she can, and then, absolutely nothing. The entire creature just vanished into thin air. The sheer horror and shock of these back-to-back attacks completely broke her body down, and she woke up the next morning with an inexplicable, raging 104-degree fever.
Totally desperate for a cure, Ishita's mother reaches out to an uncle, her mother's brother-in-law, who lived over in Kolkata. Now, this uncle was known around the family as this supposedly gifted spiritual healer. As soon as he hears her symptoms, he confidently declares that a dark jinn has been unleashed on her. And his price to save her life? 1 lakh rupees. That's $100,000. To put that into perspective, for a girl making barely $20,000 a month to support her entire family, that wasn't just expensive, it was an absolutely impossible fortune.
But it gets so much worse.
When a completely devastated Ishita asks who on earth would do something like this to her, the uncle gave a really chilling answer. He claimed that her adopted brother cast a deadly curse to take her out, just so he could steal her inheritance. It was a perfectly calculated lie that played right into their existing family drama, and it absolutely shattered Ishita's heart, because deep down, she had always loved her brother.
So, completely unable to afford the 1 lakh rupees, the family had to make a really desperate pivot. A close family friend urgently recommended they go see a Muslim pir, a different kind of spiritual healer, based over in Delhi. Ishita's father was super skeptical at first, but her mom convinced him that this was literally a matter of life and death. So they shifted their focus to Delhi, having zero clue about the horrifying truth they were about to uncover about their own family.
At their very first meeting in Delhi, the pir senses the dark energy right away. He just reaches out and forcefully pinches Ishita's pinky finger. And the reaction? Totally horrifying. Her eyes immediately roll back into her head, her face contorts, and this entity speaks directly through her mouth, screaming out loud, "I won't leave her. I won't go back."
What came next was basically a spiritual marathon, a grueling exorcism. The pir tells the mom that the entity is dug in deep, and it's going to take 7 consecutive days of really intense spiritual cleansing. We're talking hours every single day, where the pir is chanting and violently splashing holy water right onto her face. And every time the water hit her, the jinn inside would just scream in agony. Finally, on day 7, the pir manages to suppress it. He hands Ishita a protective taweez, an amulet, and strictly warns her to never ever take it off.
Okay, brace yourself, because here is the massive plot twist. That whole story about the brother casting the curse, a complete lie. The pir looked at them and revealed the actual truth. That trusted uncle in Kolkata, the exact same guy who demanded the 100,000 rupees to cure her, was actually the one who performed Maran Kriya, which is a literal death magic curse. He performed it on her himself. He orchestrated this entire terrifying haunting purely to extort money from his own helpless niece. Unbelievable, right?
When Ishita's mom angrily called her sister to confront her about this, the aunt just completely broke down in tears. She tragically confirmed the whole thing. It turns out her husband was a serial abuser of dark magic. Every Amavasya, the new moon, he would literally force her into a room, paint her black, and perform these terrifying rituals. She even confessed that he cast Vashikaran, a type of mind control, just to keep her trapped in the marriage. And worst of all, he even subjected their own 9-year-old daughter to these demonic practices. The uncle was, without a doubt, a monster hiding in plain sight.
Now you'd think the truth coming out would be the end of it, right? Nope. Trying to get a first start, Ishita moves to Indore for a new job. But suddenly, that heavy amulet she has to wear starts causing severe, burning rashes all over her skin. And even worse, the jinn comes back. It starts appearing in her nightmares again, standing right over her and promising it would finally kill her at exactly 2 a.m. The uncle's magic was relentless, actively trying to break right through the amulet's protection.
Pushed to the absolute brink, exhausted, terrified, running on empty, Ishita finally gets a moment of true divine intervention. One night, a really peaceful sadhu, a holy man, appears in her dream with one clear, specific instruction. He tells her, "Go to Mahakal immediately. All your troubles will be fixed." Trusting this vision, she doesn't even hesitate. She books a bus ticket right then and there and takes this completely desperate solo trip to the ancient Mahakal temple in Ujjain. When she finally gets to this massive, incredibly crowded temple, something amazing happens. That heavy, dark burden she'd been carrying around, it suddenly just felt light. She's standing there in a massive line of literally thousands of devotees when a mysterious sadhu sitting near the gates, this man with these incredibly ancient, deep eyes, suddenly points directly at her and calls her right out of the crowd. He looks right through her, almost staring into her soul, and asks this incredibly chilling question. How are you still alive? They are digging your grave every day. Guys, a total stranger hundreds of miles away from her home instantly saw this deadly Maran Kriya attached to her. To put it into perspective, that just perfectly illustrates the sheer terrifying continuous force of her uncle's black magic.
But her ultimate salvation ended up being shockingly simple. The sadhu tells her to take off that agonizing amulet and gives her a simple sacred thread instead. He tells her to wear it for exactly 6 months and promises her that she is finally, truly safe. And get this, after she thanks him, she turns around just a second later and the man has completely vanished without a trace. But the craziest part? From that day on, the nightmares stopped completely. The jinn never returned, and Ishita fully reclaimed her life and her career. The curse was finally broken.
Ishita's terrifying ordeal wasn't just about some random entity in a tree. It was a brutal, real-world lesson about the incredibly dark intentions of the people closest to us. Because, let me ask you this, in a world where your own relatives might cast death curses in the dark just for a quick payout, who can you truly trust? It really makes you think. Always be careful where you place your faith, because sometimes the most dangerous monsters aren't hiding under your bed. They're sitting right across from you at the family dinner table. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there.